Hello, my name is Mary Harelkin Bishop, and I'm an author. I've written all the books that you see sitting here, and the book I'm most well known for is the Tunnels of Time time travel series, of which this book, Tunnels of Time, is the very first one. The book I'm going to talk to you about today, though, is called Mistasiniy, Buffalo Rubbing Stone. And Mistasiniy is a Cree word that means big stone. The story is about two boys. The first boy is Danny. He's the one sitting on the rock. And he comes from a homesteading family. His great, 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 great grandparents came from Scotland in the 1890s and homesteaded on the land that Danny's farm is on now. The other boy, who's leaning against the rock, is Zach. And Zach is a First Nation boy, a Cree boy. He doesn't feel comfortable at school. He doesn't feel like he belongs. He lives in town with his mom, but his mushum and cookum, his grandpa and grandma, live on the reserve, which is near the town. The boys' teacher, Mr. Gibson, makes the boys partners in a family history project. So they're researching the history of both their families, and they have to present it to class somehow. Now, when you look at this cover, do you think that Danny and Zach are friends? If you said no, you'd be right. What is your evidence? How can you tell that they're probably not friends? Did you talk about the way they're not facing each other? Did you talk about how they are not making eye contact? You can't tell very well, but did you talk about how they don't look like they're smiling? It's all in the body language. So no, it's true. They are not friends. And the big rock that's on this cover also plays a really important part in the story. It sits on Danny's farm, and it's Danny's very special place that he likes to go when he's sad or when he just needs to think things through, maybe when he just needs some time alone. But Zach finds out, as he learns more about his family history, that there was a Mistasiniy in his family history that played a really important part, a big rock that was really important. And it has gotten lost over time. And it got lost because as his people were shot off on reserves, the history of things just got lost through time. I wrote this book because I wanted to start conversations about the history of our province, Saskatchewan, and our country, Canada. I wanted readers like you and teachers and parents to start talking about the treatment of our Indigenous friends in Canada, both in the past and today. And this is part of reconciliation, because we know we all need to learn to get along together for ourselves, for our communities, for Canada, for the world. I have to say too, I am not an Indigenous person. I am white, and some people have said to me that I shouldn't be the one writing stories like this. But other people, First Nation people included, have actually thanked me for writing this story, Mistasiniy, and also Skybird, which is this one. I'll talk about that in another little video. Because these stories help readers think about reconciliation and the reconciliation that needs to happen in Canada. I had a lot of help writing these books. My friends who are Cree and Métis walked and took this journey with me as I wrote and helped me so that I would get things accurately portrayed in the story. So I'm very proud of this book. And one of the reasons I'm really proud of this story is because as I wrote the story, I wanted to tell it from Zach's point of view, and I also wanted to tell it from Danny's point of view. So my friends really helped me out. My friends who are Cree and Métis really helped me out when I was trying to tell Zach's story. And so I wrote this book in alternating chapters. One chapter talks about Danny and what he's thinking, and then another chapter tells it from Zach's perspective. So I'm going to read you a little bit from both boys so you can get a little taste of what it is. And the part I'm going to read to you is where Danny goes to see Mr. Gibson after he finds out Zach's his partner, and he's asking for a new partner. Danny pretended to be searching for something in his desk as the other students grabbed their backpacks and fled the room. The farm kids, Danny included, had buses to catch. Danny knew that he couldn't be too long. Mr. Friesen, the bus driver, would only wait a couple of extra minutes. If Danny missed the bus, his mother would have to come and get him, and she wouldn't be happy about that, especially with harvest underway. When the last student left the room, Danny got to his feet and shuffled to Mr. Gibson's cluttered desk at the front of the room. Yes, Danny? Danny cleared his throat and took a deep breath. Mr. Gibson, I just can't be partners with Zach. You don't understand our history. We are bad news together, like oil and water, like yin and yang, whatever that is. I know they don't mix. Like night and day. He faltered for a moment, running out of ideas. Anyway, I just can't work with Zach. Mr. Gibson frowned and pushed his glasses up. You said you had trouble with Zach? When did that happen? Oh, well, really, about 3 years ago. When you were in grade 3? Yes, in grade 3. I stood up to Zach and he's kind of left me alone ever since. But the teachers have never put us together because they know about the situation. And now that you know, well, you can see that I just can't be partners with Zach. It would never work. Mr. Gibson sighed and ran his long, slender fingers through his dark, wavy hair. So because of some ancient history that happened 3 years ago, you want a new partner? Danny breathed. Yes. He was glad that Mr. Gibson finally understood. He smiled for the first time since he heard that he and Zach would be partners. Do you think people can grow and change? Mr. Gibson asked quietly. Danny tried to think fast. He knew this was a trick question, and no matter what he answered, he would be caught like a fly in a spider's web. So I'll just leave it there, and you can see that what Danny's thinking. And what do you think? Do you think Mr. Gibson will give him a new partner? What would your teacher do? All right, so now I'm going to read the start of chapter 2, which is all about Zach. Zach shuffled slowly down the road, the hot afternoon breeze ruffling his hair. He was alone on the deserted street, except for a few grasshoppers flying in front of him as he walked. He had waited in the hallway after school, trying to get up the courage to talk to his teacher, Mr. Gibson, about being Danny's partner. Silently lurking, like the moon's shadow on a winter's night, he had tiptoed to the edge of the classroom door and had watched Danny plead for a new partner. Tilting his ear toward the sound, he heard Danny's mumbled request to work with someone else. He also heard Mr. Gibson's firm denial. Zach didn't want to work with Danny any more than Danny wanted to work with him. He felt uncomfortable around Danny. But since Danny had failed at getting a new partner, Zach knew he didn't stand a chance either. Still, he should have asked Mr. Gibson, just in case having both boys make the request would have changed his mind. The school sat on the edge of town, and just beyond the schoolyard, Zach could see a field of golden wheat waving its tufted heads in the air. Lifting his nose, he sniffed the air and filled his lungs with the sweet smell of drying grass. This time of year was Zach's favorite, and he loved the short walk to the other side of town, where he lived with his mom in a small rental house. It was such a great day that Zach decided to take a detour and walk along the gravel road that led to the other entrance of town a kilometer to the east. Being cooped up in school was not Zach's thing, but he tried to go because it was important to his mother and his grandparents. Stay in school, they lectured him. Get an education, help your people. They just didn't understand how hard it was to sit in a classroom, staring at 4 ugly walls all day, especially when no one liked him and no one really talked to him. It made him feel invisible. So that's a little taste of Zach too. And so I wrote the book in alternating chapters, one from Danny's perspective and one from Zach's perspective throughout the whole book. The other thing I really like about this book is I have about 6 or 7 entries from Danny's great Grandma Rose's diary or journal that she kept way back in the 1890s. I'm not going to read you any of that, but I sure hope that you will pick up the book and find out what happens to Danny and Zach and to see what great Grandma Rose had to say. Keep reading, and I'll see you again soon.